I'll talk to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for being here so promptly. And I have to wait for my colleague to sit down.
But I heard the hammer.
Oh, God, the hammer, the hammer. The Finance Committee meeting is called to order Thursday, April 26th at 12:31 p.m. All members are present, that being Alderwoman Finlayson to my left and Alderwoman O'Neill left, right. They're both here. And we've been joined by my colleague Alderman Gay as well. It's the 25th. Let me correct myself. Okay. All right. Just at this time, I'll accept a motion to approve today's agenda.
Motion to approve agenda for today?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 At this time, I'll accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 24th, 2024. 42424.
Motion to approve 4/24/24 meeting minutes?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so general discussion today is limited to community grants. Before we continue the presentations, I've asked the mayor's office and the city manager's office and the Office of Community Services to tell us what the process was, what transpired between the two offices / departments, how we got to where we are, which is, I'm referring to Amendment E. And then it will, let's see where we are after that discussion. And then I have invited Assistant City Attorney Carrie Berger here. So the objective is to get to where we are, where we want to be, and feel comfortable with the code. That's.
They're Appendix E under the A tab of your book, the very last section of A tab.
Thank you. Okay, so when you're ready, Kate, you can start. I see Kate first. I'm not sure who wants to start first.
I think Vicky's going to start. Vicky and I together will get the ball rolling.
So I wanted to start with just a general overview of like the macro sequence of events. The community grants process has obviously changed a bit over the many years that the city has had that. And in addition, obviously, we've had some transition within the Office of Community Services, which just sort of impacted how a couple of things went this year. In general, the role of the code has specifies that there needs to be a review panel that makes recommendations to ultimately to council through the budget process. When I look at that recommendation, in my head, there are essentially two pieces of that recommendation. The first piece of it is, given this application that's in front of us, is this organization and this project, is it responsive to the requirements of the code? Is it eligible to be considered at all? The second question then ends up being crafting a recommended award amount. In my head, these are two different pieces, although often related. In terms of the process, the application window is open. The kind of main application window is open for a length of time. At the end of that, then, the panel then looks at those applications and makes both determinations. Are they eligible at all? And then crafts a financial recommendation for them. That recommendation then gets fed into the budget process, which means then that it goes to mayor's office, city manager's office, Department of Finance, and that overall budget process for review. And to then look at, that is a set of recommendations. So then looking at that in terms of the larger budget and the larger set of city considerations. And I don't know if you want to.
Where does the finance committee fall in that? You said the panel reevaluation and then to the mayor's.
Right, and then that, of course, gets incorporated into the proposed budget that then goes to council and to the finance committee. Okay. So then there is essentially a third layer of review, and finance committee makes recommendations, goes to full council ultimately passes the budget. Right, so there's a set of kind of tiers of that review process that starts with the recommendations of the panel. And I tend to view that as, because we have these layers of review, here's a recommended place to start that conversation. So the panel itself obviously makes a recommendation, not a determination.
Thanks, Vicky. And Kate Pettit, Chief of Staff to Mayor Buckley. So as Vicky alluded, we have these tiered layers. When the panel have finished their process, it comes before the city management team, the mayor, for review of that outcome as part of the budget. And at that point, the management team, so finance director, city manager, mayor, are the main players there, get to look at that recommendation from the panel and get to review it. And at that stage, I think we applied a additional lens to it, but it was trying to keep in line with the sort of criteria we knew that the panel had been working around. So we know that they are assessing for things like impact. What kind of impact does this agency have? Reach and scope. What kind of services are they seeking to use the grant for? Is it programmatic versus technical? What kind of, are there other providers out there providing these services? Are they unique in the role they play in the community? And I think at the second stage of review that the management team was part of, we also brought an additional consideration, which I think is for the mayor was particularly important. And that is, what is the place of that agency in the community? And in that instance, we did recommend 2 additional agencies be considered, the Wiley Bates Legacy Centre and the Community Action Agency. The consideration given there was that these are legacy organisations. They have played a role in the community over decades and delivered services that are not in line with our providers, and they have been doing it for a very long time. And that legacy piece was, I guess, the additional criteria that was considered at that stage of the review. We also, we were trying to keep in line with the intent of the program. Sorry, excuse me, I just want to make sure I don't skip any part of this because it sort of explains the sequential process we worked through. So another piece to this is that, all of these agencies need to comply with the code requirements. And that means they have to have an application, and that means they have to have reporting. So in reaching out to those agencies, I was assured that they were going to meet those requirements. And I know that the Community Action Agency have submitted their proposal for FY25 and all their reporting for the last year. I believe the Wiley Bates Legacy Centre is in that process. I also learned that they had reached out to try and get that information earlier when the panel review phase was open. But for whatever reason, they'd not had success in connecting, and maybe because of the change in personnel. So that was another consideration. We knew that there were phone and email history here that suggested these people had tried to get into the process, but for whatever reason had not been successful in doing that. Some of these considerations are things the panel wouldn't be aware of, so that's kind of the thinking, is have we considered all the relevant pieces here? So we've communicated to these agencies, we've let them know that you must meet the requirements, you must put in an application, You must adhere to all the requirements that the code says. As I say, the Community Action Agency have submitted theirs. And I know that the Wiley Bates Legacy Centre are in process of doing it. I haven't seen it yet. And we've asked them to do that as quickly as possible to make sure that is all put on the table within the time frame for your third layer of review. And so you're not going to be asked to make a call on that without assurance that everyone is meeting their obligations. And I will just finish, I guess, by making a final point, which Vicky alluded to, and that is the way the process continues to evolve year after year. And I think we kind of expect that all the agencies will know what to do or will work in this evolution. But I think it is an educational process. I think, it is about communicating and making sure everybody does understand. And sometimes I think for these legacy institutions, the change from year to year is not always clear to them. So that was another consideration. And I think we all want to work to make sure this is transparent. We want to make sure we meet code requirements. But the idea that that's been done in a consistent way is probably not, we are changing it. In the 3 years I've been here, it's been done a little bit differently every year. So that was another consideration. So that's kind of where we applied our review to this process and the requirements we expect the agencies to meet to be worthy of your consideration.
Okay, what I would like next is, this is good, and if Vicky, Assistant City Manager, could you then explain, speak to the disconnect where there was documentation, but what the Finance Committee was presented with specific to those two applicants, the document doesn't reflect what Ms. Pettit just said. The document that the Finance Committee was presented with said there's nothing in the grant request for each of them. So it looks like we're giving them money without the paperwork being there.
At the time,
So you can,
at the time of that the panel met, they did not have an application in front of them. And that is why that's not part of the panel recommendation, which is layer 1, right? So subsequent to that, we've gotten Community Action Agency. Bates is still on its way, but has been asked. But the reason it looks that way in the budget and the information and why those weren't included in the panel recommendation is because they didn't have them in front of them at that time.
okay. We're going to have questions from my colleagues, but then I really would ask for the help of the Assistant City Attorney to digest what was said. And so just to make sure that we're following legal procedures, cognizant of what the code says and cognizant of what we're hearing on record publicly right now, we're basically saying that the applications are coming in late, right? Right. So, and they are, and the reports were done, but am I correct? Were they or were they not submitted?
We have one submitted, and I've been told one. My understanding is that Wiley Bates had reached out about trying to get their application in train a couple of weeks ago at least. From both agencies, I've heard that they had tried to find out what they needed to do. For whatever reason, they didn't see or know, the advertised process. And they had tried probably. My feeling on what I know is that they reach out to people they know at the city, but when personnel change happens, then maybe that communication gets lost. And that's kind of my sense of what I've been told. I've looked, we want to make sure we're in line with the code. There's no sense that, the mayoral or city management team review would ask anyone to violate that. What we kind of brought to it was a sense that these are agencies for whom we should extend the deadline because of their legacy and history in the city, because of their scope of work, and also because of the partnership, the active partnership they have provided to the city in different ways over the years. So, the Wiley Bates Legacy Centre has been very active on a range of, civil rights and other social issues that are very important in programs that impact the Annapolis Police Department and so on. There's a partnership, that's been growing, particularly in the last couple of years there. The Community Action Agency, for example, has been a partner to us on the CNI Choice Neighbourhoods initiative with the Housing Authority. They helped us ensure that these community surveys were distributed to residents. And, neither agency had personnel to do that. So they helped us distribute those surveys, for example, when that partnership was needed for that project. So it's for these sorts of considerations that we felt it warranted an extension of the deadline. And obviously they will need to meet that deadline before the Finance Committee gets to make their final review.
One last question before I turn it to my colleagues. Was there any consideration of putting these 2 line items in the mayor's budget? I'm not sure how relevant that is, but just...
Do you mean the Mayor's office budget?
Yeah.
There's certainly been discussion about where is the appropriate place for these agencies. They've always been funded through the Community Grants Program, so no, it wasn't I don't think the Mayor's office was not a consideration. We did debate whether some agencies fit more under an economic development or some other program, but they have been funded in this way, so that's kind of where they were added.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm backing up here. I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Are you okay, Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yeah, just give me a minute. Let Alderwoman O'Neill
Okay, sure.
ask her question.
She injured her knee, so sorry.
That's okay.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Thank you very much. I guess my frustration and confusion in this entire process is that I have been taught since I came on board that we follow the code. And while I understand your explanation and whatnot, this process did not follow the code. And separating these out while leaving them in community grants puts us at risk of other grantees and applicants coming after us for not following the correct process. Because how is it fair when they see somebody else who has basically been given differential treatment because they're getting money without us seeing an application? There's other organizations that are also getting money that haven't submitted reports. So that was going to be my next discussion, because if our city code says that if you don't submit the report, you shall not be eligible to receive those funds. In the real world, outside of the city of Annapolis, if I request a grant and I don't follow through with the grant guidelines, I lose that grant. In many, many, many cases, I also pay that money back.
I think we might need the assistant city attorney to weigh in
Yeah,
here, because
may I
these are-
just make one reply? I do want to pass this over to Kerry, but I just want to make one kind of response to that based on the review we gave and our understanding. The code requires applications and requires reports. It doesn't speak to deadlines and timelines. So we've taken the view that the budget process gives us that opportunity to have those layers of review, and obviously Kerry will tell us if that's not not going to be in accordance with the code. The intention is to ensure we are compliant, but my understanding is we do not have any detail about how the details of these programmatic requirements should be applied, and nothing about deadlines per se. So that's the understanding we applied.
And I also want it on the record. It's not that I don't appreciate and understand the impact that these organizations give on the city. I am not questioning that. I am questioning basically our process and how we are coming to those, and the transparency that we are showing to our citizens. We work for our constituents, and when I have constituents that wonder and ask, while they put forth a presentation that clearly states that $50,000 would be a world changer for their organization, and we're giving them 3 because they're new, that is hard to stomach. So I want it to be clear that I support the organizations. It's not that I do not support the 2 organizations. I don't support the process to which we're getting there.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Kerry, so, yeah.
Carrie Berger, Assistant City Attorney. I just want to start with the reports requirement and make sure everyone is sort of on the same page with the filing of reports. The code does not state that if a organization doesn't file their report that they can no longer receive subsequent funding. It's discretionary. So if someone doesn't file those quarterly reports, it's possible that they would not get funding in subsequent fiscal years, but it is not a mandate that they no longer get funding. So I just want to make that clear. It's not a absolute prohibition on subsequent funding. And then sort of working backwards from that, what the mayor's chief of staff said is in line with the code. There aren't any sort of deadlines or anything like that in the code. There may be internal processes that relate to deadlines, but the code just requires applications to be submitted and then the applications to be reviewed by the grants committee to meet that criteria that's set forth in the code. And then the grants committee makes their recommendations to the finance committee as part of the budget process, but there isn't any sort of exact deadline that's stated for an absolute absolute deadline for when the recommendations come before the finance committee from the grants committee. So per the code, someone could submit an application pretty much at any point during the budget process. There isn't a hard deadline that's in the code.
Per budget.
Okay, what about the application itself? If the application is not in on time, does this code?
Well, so the code doesn't speak to when the applications have to be submitted. So, if an application is submitted July 10th, obviously it's past that deadline for the fiscal year, the start of the fiscal year. But while the budget process is unfolding, there isn't a deadline that's in the code. Now, I understand that you guys have passed a resolution that sort of has deadlines for where you guys want to be as part of the budget process. So you could sort of make that inference that imposes a deadline. But if you guys are still submitting amendments to the budget, as I think it's May 15th is your sort of self-imposed deadline, hypothetically speaking, an organization could submit an application up until May 15th. There's nothing that's in our code that puts an absolute deadline for these groups and organizations to submit their applications.
Do you have a response, Alderman O'Neill? I just wanted to ask about the parallel, or look at my flow chart here. Let me ask it this way: does the mayor's office have that, prerogative to define, legacy organizations, our key relationships, and then that translates to a grant? Because that's kind of sort of what happened, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, it was...
As part of the mayor's budget, the mayor and city management team, we were all in the room together during this discussion. But the mayor, it's the mayor's budget. He can put that proposal forward. That's when it comes to you and then to the council
So
for that
that's
final piece, is my understanding. Please correct me if anything needs to be clarified or corrected, Kerry.
Okay. Well, you explained why I believe that why we got it, exhibit, is it an amendment or an exhibit?
Appendix.
Appendix E, with the 2 respective blanks on the grant request. So it looked like, on paper, the document implies that the paperwork wasn't there. So as I want to protect us legally, Finance Committee. I mean, we're just making recommendations, but, I wanted to make sure this wasn't a blatant code violation. And it be defined by the public as quote unquote favoritism. You know what I mean? So can you say something that reassures me that we can
I can try.
This way.
So the way that I just am sort of learning about this as we go along. I haven't been very involved in the community
That's
grant
probably
program.
just as well.
So my understanding of how things are unfolding is that the two groups at issue here, at question here, have submitted an application or are planning to submit an application. If an application is submitted, that part of the code has been met. And then if the grants committee convenes and sort of reviews that criteria that's set forth in the code to be sort of eligible for a community grant, and then makes a recommendation to the finance committee, then the code provisions have been satisfied and have been met, and there isn't an issue with a violation of a code provision. The code is broad enough in the sense that, you know, once you sort of meet those elements of the code provisions, there's no legal concern in terms of violating the code or anyone violating the code. There may be internal processes that are kind of getting conflated with what's actually written in the code, and that's a separate issue that's not going to necessarily be addressed through the code. But if with these two groups, if they submit their applications and the grants committee, you know, makes a recommendation after reviewing it and they've met all of that criteria, and then that recommendation is put forth to you guys, the code has been followed.
Okay, two questions. Appendix E will it be revised before it is submitted to the city council? To city council, what I'm getting at is I have not been to any finance committee meetings, and I'm right. No, with the grant that request in there, but so, you know, I don't want to have to open this up again.
So my understanding, unfortunately, Jody and Katie aren't here, so subject to correction from them, my understanding is that any changes to the mayor's proposed budget, sometimes they're technical changes to just correct outright errors.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if there are substantive changes, then that's done through an amendment process. For example, just to help kind of clarify and remove some of those duplicates that had come up in the earlier one, none of the numbers changed, right? So that kind of revision to just help clarify the presentation,
Yeah.
I wouldn't think would require an amendment, because there's nothing that's actually substantively different, but it was helpful for just presentation purposes. But like I said, Katie and Jody aren't here, and I don't know, Mike, if you have a
Jody.
guidance.
I know, I'm trying to think of what. Go ahead. Oh, city manager, Malin?
Michael Malinoff, city manager. I'm eating my lunch, so I'm going to not say anything. No, just kidding.
Can you share?
What was the rephrase of the question?
I think the question was about amendments to Appendix E and what kind of change would actually require, like how would that a change to be done?
When the city council gets this, it's going to have a blank for those two organizations. The way it is right now, it has a blank where it says what their grant request is, blank, and then but there is a recommendation to award. So I was just concerned about the blank and not having to have this discussion again.
Well,
Is there a better way of asking that?
I think obviously it's been submitted in the budget. The mayor's budget's been submitted. So I would say that the amendment process would take place with you three.
To Appendix E.
Could I offer a thought? And I'm not necessarily the most expert at every detail of our process, but given that we're effectively the layer of review that we brought to it was extending a deadline, and we've made it clear these all have to be in well before the Finance Committee makes its recommendation. At that point, it's I'm wondering if it's possible that we submit an updated, corrected version once we've had a chance to review it. I would have hoped that's possible, but I guess we need our experts to confirm.
You know, I do want to point out that these came in after the committee. I don't know whether there was a discussion or reach out or not, but they are existing entities that have been doing business in the city for a while. So a good argument was made from the mayor's office, and the mayor submits the budget, and that's where it was included. I do also want to point out there was a third group, the film festival, and we put
addressed
that in the. And
Planning and zoning.
you brought up that point about should it be in the mayor's or somewhere else. Well, at that point, that made sense. Just put it in economic development because that's kind of what it is. So that was simply all there was to it. And I would think if the documentation comes in that you all can, and it checks out through the committee review, you all can accept it, amend it, and that's it.
I'd like Alderwoman Finlayson to talk.
I will try. I'm not sure that I can. I managed to wrench my knee, which makes me nauseous. So I'm sitting here. I can't.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
I do apologize.
why don't you?
I do have important questions.
Let's. Please. We're going to recess for at least 10 minutes. Your patience, the Finance Committee meeting is resuming. We have some follow-up questions from Alderwoman Finlayson.
And I do apologize for getting sick on camera. You know, I have been intimately involved with community grants since I came on the council, when we were giving as much as $800,000 a year. And because I have a knowledge of most of the nonprofits in the city, I was always the person that was looked to give recommendations. And I did, and they were very often, always accepted. Recently, we have created a committee, which is a benefit to the city because there is more input from others before it gets to the mayor's desk. But I'll remind us, this is the mayor's budget, and now it's our budget, but these recommendations came with the mayor's office or his budget. Our process has changed, and there are weaknesses in it. We have a new director for this department, and she came in right about when community grants were due. Our nonprofits had traditionally received notices about the application. And most organizations do that. I got a notice yesterday from the County Arts Council saying, reminder, applications due in 30 days. Well, we didn't do that this year. By nobody's fault, but that didn't happen. As people were realizing that they should have gotten an application, they were trying to reach, but they didn't know who to reach because Aisha was still new, and maybe she wasn't even on board at the time. And so phone calls went unanswered. I got a couple of calls, and I ended up reaching out to Aisha to say, you know, people need to know what's going on and what the deadlines are, et cetera. So there have been issues. I detest the fact that we are painting these organizations as derelict organizations. They are not. While they apply for these grants on an annual basis, most of them are totally volunteer organizations that provide for us services that we cannot provide for our residents. And so it really is about the services they provide. We are not an incubator or an opportunity for startups to get their sea legs. You know, I'd be glad to support legislation or an amendment to create an incubator if we want startup organizations. But this group, this community grant group have been our tried and true organizations that we can count on, with whom we partner. We partner in any number of ways, including rental of our space. And there are several organizations here who are in city-owned spaces, and they pay us a nominal fee. And in at least one case, that fee was in lieu of an annual rental. And that is because we would charge them a rental fee, $10,000 a year. And then they would come to us in the form of a community grant and ask for $10,000, which they would turn around and give it to us to pay their rental fee. And so we saw fit, the council saw fit to say, why are we doing this turnaround? Just give them the facility for $1 and they don't have to come for a community grant. So there have been all kinds of relationships developed, over the years, and there is a history. And here comes the fire chief. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that I believe either the applications are in or they have been making every effort to get them in. Our portal has been closed since the closing, so they can't get their applications in. So we should not be holding them accountable because they have called and asked how to get their applications in, and they still don't have an answer. So there's still a blank here. The bottom line for me is the mayor has made his decisions, the committee has made their decisions, and the finance committee has a responsibility to make our decisions. But I will not, and Ms. Pettit, thank you for, and the mayor for defining this as legacy organizations. We cannot throw away those groups that have been with us for a long, long time and have served many, many, many of our residents. So they can only be thanked. But I say that we have a responsibility to fund these groups. I don't agree with all of them, and if I were given an opportunity, I'd go through and make some changes. But I'm not going to do that. I know that at least one alderman wants to increase the funding for the community grants, and I told him wholeheartedly, I know they're coming for me.
I have to get the hook, Sheila, I'm sorry.
But I would support increasing the funding, and then we can fight over who's going to get the dribbles and drabs. But I do believe that there needs to be, in the future, some limitations on outside organizations who are coming in. We have organizations who are 30 miles from us making requests of the city. We have organizations that don't have track records making requests of the city. We have organizations where the sponsors come in and scream and yell and cry in front of us and then expect us to give a grant to them. So there are any number of considerations. I say these organizations have proven their worth to the city. And the fact that we have to fight over this and debate over this every year is pretty appalling in my mind. So I don't know whether there was a question in there or not,
Okay.
but Ms. Petty,
Do
Ms.
I-
Pettit.
Do I recess while she needs to be attended
can I-
to? Do I need to recess?
Can I have Ms. Pettit answer
Yeah.
before I do?
I just wanted to make
I am stubborn, yes.
one point just to clarify. When we extend by extending the deadline for these organisations, we weren't setting a precedent because, as I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, team, but we had already extended the deadline. So we weren't setting a precedent by doing that, and we were taking into account the criteria that have been laid out.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
I'll go willingly.
Well, no, don't get up.
I can't.
Sorry, we need to take a, not sure, 1:30, we'll say? I'll come back and see where we're at. Meeting is reconvened. Let's continue where we left off.
I just think the amendments should be put in, and I would like clarity because I can do one of two things today when I leave out of here. Go get more organizations to submit applications so that they could be then considered for funding, or we put together the amendments and it's voted on that these organizations should be allowed to accept funding. And so before we leave out today, is the process going to be that I can leave out of here, find an organization, a nonprofit, have them submit an application before the Finance Committee deliberates, and they would be considered for funding?
That would be I think that rises to an assistant city attorney answer, if I'm not mistaken, because it's basically to, ignore the code, for lack of a better word.
Well, Carrie Berger, Assistant City Attorney, just so I understand the question correctly, Alderman Gay, you're saying if another organization were to submit an application today, would it go through the process of going before the Grants Committee and the Grants Committee making their recommendation and then those recommendations being presented to the Finance Committee as part of this process, or as part of this budget process?
Yeah.
That would be in conformance with the code, yes.
So that to me is, I don't think we should set that precedent, because then you just have organizations coming from January through April submitting applications and requesting funding. And so just back to the last point, this is just my last point. I do think that an amendment should be put in for this, because I don't have the Appendix E pulled up yet online, which I know you have updated, but in Appendix E in the paper, which was submitted to the city council when the mayor submitted his budget, the total is $423,750. Is that including the $50,000?
It is.
So was the $50,000 then taken from other organizations, or how was that? How was the $50,000 found?
So the two organizations in question are part of that list.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Michael Malinoff, city manager. It was simply not amended, but added from a one-time fund source or a fund source that the finance director identified at the time. And as I mentioned earlier, there was a third request that didn't come in on time either, but had been previously, or let's say, in time for the committee, and that was the film festival. And likewise, that was added to the budget at the mayor's request, but we put it in planning and zoning under economic development because it didn't seem to be the same kind of organization. So that's how the funding came up. It wasn't taken away from the other organizations.
Okay. In closing, I support the organizations, but I don't think they should get the funding. I think, there have been issues that we have brought up repeatedly with the missing quarterly reports, late applications, et cetera. And I think if we put our foot down this year, and particularly with two organizations that have close ties and relations to other, government partners, where I know, for example, Community Action Agency is getting funding from the county, I don't think that they're missing out on this $25,000 grant for their mistake, would be that big of a deal, unfortunately. So.
I think we're at a good conclusion here. Is definitely your prerogative as start the presentations. Vicki, I'll hand it off to you, Assistant City Manager. Alicia, I'll hand it off to you. Aisha. How come A isn't in the spelling? Is it in the spelling? I-A-S-H-A. Somebody spelled it wrong. Did she really throw up? Okay. Couldn't make this up. Aisha, I said it.
Aisha.
Aisha. All right, what should we be looking at?
Well,
The presentation is in line with the order that they're going to be presented.
I have two changes. If Patsy's still here.
Clear in introducing yourself, your organization, and your address. So, and begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much, council members. My name is Patsy Baker Blackshear. I'm the president for the Kunta Kinte Alex Haley Foundation, and our address is 87 West Street. We are housed at, to make sure that every time I get a chance, I clarify, we are sister organizations, we work together, but we have a different focus. The festival, of course, is an event-related organization, and the foundation provides ongoing support for efforts designed to uncover, promote, and share African American heritage and history in the Annapolis area. So one focus on ongoing function and one is event. We're asking for $4,000, and those funds will be used to allow us to support our programming activities and our continued operation. Before you now on the screen, you see some of the ongoing activities that the foundation engages in, and I just want to highlight one or two since my time is very, very, very short. And one of the items is the item that's noted as a QR code. You might not be aware of it, but I promote it every time I get a chance. Our memorial has a number of QR codes on it, and you can go to our website, or you can take your little scanner and you can get a video, 4 different videos that describe the memorial and the different components of it. The other I want to highlight is the historical Bates documentary. We work through partners because we're a very small organization, so we leverage our resources and our activity through community partners and volunteers. And we worked with Bates, and we interviewed the last 15 teachers that were alive at that time to tell the story of Bates and the community through the eyes of those teachers who taught at Bates before the school system was integrated. The final one I want to highlight is something we recently finished, which is our African American Female Pioneer Project. We did the research and interviewed people, and we identified 34 African American female pioneers. These were the first women in the area to achieve in their particular area of accomplishment. Those 34 women are identified across 6 different bands of time. You could go to the next one. You will see some of those women of our 34. Some are still with us. A large number of them are deceased. And the next one shows, okay? And then finally, I want to highlight something that we do every year since 1987. We have something that's called the Annual Commemoration Ceremony, where we work often with the festival, and we pay honor to the Kunta Kinte and other indentured persons who came, enslaved persons and indentured persons who came to this country.
What we're going to do that's different from the last time, because just doing the math here, we're going to try to finish at 2:30. We'll see. We want to ask questions right afterwards, and 2 minutes max, colleagues. Okay. 2 minutes max of questions. Okay. Any questions? Alderman Gay.
Thank you. Do you also maintain the statue?
I'm sorry?
Do you maintain the statue as well?
We work with the city to do so. The city actually maintains now. We monitor, and then we meet periodically with the city when we see issues.
And lastly, where are the QR codes? I don't think I've noticed.
One is on the 3-panel pedestal right behind Alex. One is across the street over at the Market House on the information kiosk board. One is on the story wall at the beginning, and one is there at the Blackshear plaque. So there are 4 different ones, and they talk about the different phases and the different history around the development of the memorial and Annapolis.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
I mean, quick questions.
Oh, that means you gave a good presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. Okay. Okay. Next.
Next we have Aaron Snell with Charting Careers. Your presentation. Oh, why did I see that? Thank you, Aaron. Hello. So your
Hello.
name and your address.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Erin Snell, and I'm the Executive Director of Charting Careers. Our address is 210 Legion Avenue, number 6463. It's so nice to see you, and we are so grateful for the city's support over the years. You have been truly instrumental in us being able to work towards our mission, and our mission is to inspire youth to discover their power and reach their goals, and we are focused right here in Annapolis. And right now, we are serving over 70 youth long-term through our programming. So we have second graders, we serve them through elementary, middle, high school, to and through college. 100% of our students have graduated high school, and we now have 15 students who have started or are in college or career or in military. Another key piece is our wraparound support. So I mentioned those 70 youth, but that means that we're partnering with more than 40 families, and that is deep partnership. It's not just occasional getting together for dinners, which is still important because we do that also, but really helping them get mental health connections, help them get better living situations. We've just had two families move out of public housing and into Section 8 housing, and we're still going to serve those families, and that is a huge celebration for the families. And then another family that has been experiencing homelessness who is now housed in a stable place. So that contributes to students being able to be successful. With our request, we asked for funding to support our mentoring program. So right now we have 70 youth. We don't match our elementary school children with mentors yet. They have tutors. And we have 20 youth who are matched one-to-one, and we have 20 more right now who are working on matching. And so this mentor coordinator position is extremely important because it's Chris McNally. She was at Lighthouse Shelter a while ago and now is with us. But she's actively training, screening, matching, supporting mentoring relationships, and also partnering with AACPS since they now have mentoring initiatives. But we hear from our kids that it is through those trusted adult relationships that help them see new opportunities that really have been so transformative for them. Additionally, we're asking for support for some of our community impact team, which are leaders who live in the neighborhoods. Through Adopt a Community grant with the city, we've been able to support the Clay Street community and have Renitra Anderson over there. But we also have Woodside Gardens, Miss Dorothea over in Woodside Gardens, and we also have Daisha Conti over in Eastport. And so we're seeking some partial funding for their positions. And that allows us to have them, they provide case management support in their neighborhoods. They also help support events. In Woodside Gardens, they are supporting a small group support group for students with autism and ADHD for their parents. And then in Eastport, Daisha just came back on staff with us, and so she's doing some needs assessment. So these positions are boots on the ground, really important relationship building. I mentioned this already, you can go on ahead, but we feel the reason some people say what you do is so complicated, but we really feel that in the social ecological model of change, to support a young person, you can't just support them. You need to support them with trusted adult relationships within their family unit, and then also help their community grow. And then lastly, with society. So how are their social norms? How are their societal pieces that we could support?
Questions from the committee? Oh, we need your address.
210 Legion Avenue, number 6463.
Questions?
I don't know.
I just have a quick question. What is, you spoke of Adopt a Community program. Is that the city's Adopt a Community program?
Correct.
And what is the relationship there?
So yeah, the city has a different grants program that is supports individual neighborhoods. So we are supporting Clay Street with one of our other positions that we did not ask for as part of this grant.
Okay. And when you spoke of moving up from from public housing to Section 8? I assume you're speaking of the city of Annapolis.
That's a great question. Those two families, actually, the students are still going to school in Annapolis right now, but they just moved, one of them moved to Severn in Anne Arundel County. And then the other family, I think are going to be in Brooklyn Park. So it's a new dilemma for us because it's good for the families and we don't want to drop them. And since they are still Annapolis schools, we're going to try to serve them.
Yeah, that's a huge success story. Alderman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Snell, what is your doctorate degree in?
Educational leadership and policy studies.
And does that align pretty much with what you're doing?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, my master's is in nonprofit management, and then I'm able to use my degree to really think big picture about how we're supporting our youth.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alderman Gay?
Just saying, this is an example of one of the organizations that a small organization that has a massive impact on our city. And so it's important that we continue to fund or programs like this. Just quick question, if you could break down the demographics by ward, maybe. I know you work heavy in my ward, and so are you able to highlight that in any way?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of exact numbers. We have in Clay Street community, we now have a whole bunch of families. I would say right now in Eastport, we are about 4 or 5 families that have multiple children. We have in Woodside Gardens, I think we're about 5. I feel like I should have brought that with me, but yeah, but kind of scattered.
And just also, how are you dealing with the transportation? Because I thought you had created like a program that was kind of out of the box to get kids to and from.
Absolutely. We're very grateful to partner with Annapolis Maritime Museum for our after-school programming, and so they provide one vehicle, and then we also contract Bishop Carroll and his church to provide additional vehicles, so we split those transportation costs. And then when we do outside after-school programming like field trips, we hire Bishop Carroll, or we have our mentors who are background checked, driver's license checked, provide the transportation.
See, we get a beep too. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And we apologize for the delay.
Yes, seriously. Next.
So next we have Kaylin Bedsworth with Historic Annapolis.
Did I say your name right? You sure did, actually. Can you just say your name and your yes. Thank you. I'm Kaylin Bedsworth with Historic Annapolis, Development Outreach Director. Our address is 18 Pinckney Street here in Annapolis. So thank you for having us here today and allowing us to share about our project this year in our community grant request, which encompasses steps to create a more inclusive environment for people at our museum sites, people who may face different kinds of challenges. Historic Annapolis is the leading preservation and education nonprofit here, and through our 4 museums and abundant educational programs, we create connections for Maryland's residents to our diverse past and steward the cultural treasures that surround us here in our state's capital, such as the William Paca House and Garden and the Museum of Historic Annapolis. And we are grateful. The city has supported a lot of our projects over more than 10 years. It's helped us create enriching cultural programs here, things from walking tours to resiliency studies, where we are thrilled to be your partner in all of the city dock redevelopment, in protecting the Burtis House. The grant funding has been truly transformational for us in the past for these programs as well as many more. Our impact is pretty big in this community. We boost heritage tourism. We educate our future leaders, our school students. We usually see over 200,000 visitors a year. Of those, about 35,000 do visit our historic sites, the museum and the Paca House and Garden, for tours, educational programs, field trips. And in order for us to be as most impactful as we can be, we are working on a variety of measures to increase our accessibility across several ways. Physical accessibility, language barriers. This project will help us face something that's a little less visible, sensory challenges and sensory disorders. So this year we are seeking funds to support a partnership with Culture City, which is a nonprofit that helps organizations become more inclusive and welcoming for people with sensory needs. My colleague Dana Connett, who is our community program specialist, can share a little more about the project.
Thank you, Kaylin. Hello, welcome. Thank you for listening to us. HA strives to be a welcoming and accessible
site to all visitors in Annapolis. Through mapping our visitor experiences at our sites, we try and identify and fill in gaps that exist as barriers for accessible experience for visitors. Sensory needs are a common medical condition. They include individuals with PTSD, autism, dementia, and people who have suffered from strokes. Culture City is a growing organization, and they have certified sites throughout the country that are not only cover museums, but concert venues, sports arenas, and even retail stores. Funds from this grant would allow us to enter into a contract with Culture City that would provide annual training for our staff and also sensory materials to Historic Annapolis for a 3-year period. Partnering with Culture City allows Historic Annapolis to utilize the best and newest training tools to support visitors with sensory needs and enable our front-facing staff to provide extra care and comfort for those who require special services. The online training is updated annually, and it's a reusable link. So as we onboard new employees, they'll be able to access this link. So all of our front-facing staff will always be current and up to date. We greet hundreds of both public and private school children annually. And while many children with disabilities have staff support from their school, this would make our staff better prepared to help support both the students and the students' staff aid. In addition to annual training, sensory bags and signage are provided by Culture City, which include items such as headphones, fidget tools, and are designed to lessen sensory overload. Even if visitors choose not to use the sensory bags, they will see the Culture City signs and see us listed on the Culture City website and know that we are a site that is welcoming, inclusive, and prepared.
Good timing. Good timing. Thank you so much. We're grateful for this opportunity and support. If there's any questions.
Quick question, is the training for the year or?
It's an annual training, so once you'll be certified for a year, and it would be offered to both staff and volunteers as well, because a lot of our programs are led by volunteer interpreters and volunteer guides, so we want to make sure they are also prepared and ready and trained to assist.
Questions? Alderwoman
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a 5th grader who's a resident in my ward. Her sensory issue is clothing. Mm-hmm. Would she be included in your numbers? Do you take, I'm assuming you do gather data. Would she be included?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you track that, or do you ask, or?
So the biggest part of this is people don't always identify that they have sensory needs when they come through the door, but the critical part for our staff to be trained to identify those needs and know that we have resources, or if people also see that branding from Culture City, they know that we've got the training and we have these things available. So people can either see it when they come through, or our staff is trained to identify it, which may be more for your example, where our staff is trained to recognize those extra needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The school system is involved at all?
My mic is on, okay. Alderman Gay?
The school system wouldn't necessarily be involved with this particular training or the certification, but we do partner with Anne Arundel County Public Schools and many private schools in the area to bring students in for field trips. Last week we had 1,000 students come through in a week. It was a little crazy. So we can also work with the teachers and understand. It'll just give us a little extra leverage to be able to make sure that these children have the best experience they can and that they enjoy it. No matter what their sensory need may be, they are all very different and very varied.
Yeah, it's not yet staff training. It's a critical part.
Okay. Alderwoman.
Thank you. A follow-up to Alderman Gay. I worked for the school system for 16 years. You may want to contact Dr. Maisha Gillens, who's in the Office of Equity. She's the executive director, to send her some information, because the student I'm talking about does attend a public school within the city. So she would be very, I'm sure, receptive to that and to get the word out through the school system.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Interruption.
Oh,
all right.
You know.
Yeah, I guess will we see 3? Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Good to see you.
Yeah. Next
Took care of that.
Up next, we have Jen Pastrone with Seeds for Success.
Okay.
Hi, nice to meet you. You too.
Yes, you do. Hi, Aldermen and Alderwomen. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for this chance. I actually haven't presented before in front of you, so it's great to. I've met many of you, and some of you I haven't met yet. We believe deeply in our mission that every child in Annapolis has the opportunity to build a bright future, and I'm really happy to be joined by Erin Snell. We both really are doing the same work for many children in the city, and I think it's really important that we both do exist in the city together. Oh yes, my name is Jen Pastroni. Our address is 921 Chesapeake Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland, 21403, otherwise known as the neighbor to Adam's Ribs or Adam's Grill, right next door. You can go to the next one. You can skip this one too. That's our mission. So one, I want to thank you for our previous grant and put some pictures to it. So that's Milagros Bounds. You helped us with addressing barriers to early learning in the Hispanic community. And that money really went towards helping our youngest learners, both whose caregivers did or didn't speak English proficiently, to engage in our learning. And it's been a wonderful way to build relationships with our community. We know that the Hispanic community is growing in our county and in our city, and because of the ability in-house to provide translation and really meet their needs, we are often asked for things that they may not receive in other places. So Milagros has actually joined a family member at a dental appointment because they didn't feel like they could access the language there. And so it just has our early learners, their families are incredibly grateful to be able to hear what their kids are working on and need in their own home language. So just thank you for that. Go to the next slide. Formerly, our program was the Eastport Girls Club, Eastport Boys Club, or I Am a Reader. We've expanded to 4 programs that are in our logo: Learn, Dream, Grow, and Share. As you can see, we have one-on-one academic tutoring and mentoring in our Learn pre-K through 5. When I came in, my experience is in early childhood. We used to be 2nd or 3rd grade, and we've gone down to pre-K because we know the value of early education, and we do have volunteers who work with them individually. Additionally, they receive a one-on-one mentor through middle school and some through high school and beyond high school. And we really try to give every child that opportunity to have a one-on-one mentor. And we know that that's really hard when we're all needing volunteers. One of our volunteers was in the Historic Annapolis slide. They volunteer in 2 places, and our residents are spread pretty thin with volunteering opportunities, but how powerful the need and the quality of our volunteers is in our children's lives. You can go to the next slide. So I thought the best way to share why our funding is necessary is to share a letter from, and I'm not going to read the whole letter, and I'll give you the gist, but I encourage you to read the letter. This is Isamar, top right, and that's her daughter, bottom left, being wrapped like a snowman during one of our family fun nights. And this is a letter of support she wrote for a separate grant. And it speaks to, Isamar had some trouble in high school and got involved in some business that she didn't necessarily want to be a part of. Her mentor got her through that situation, and now her daughter, who she had as a young mother, is in our program. And so they both have one-on-one mentors. So the funding, I'm sorry, I'm a second over, would be to support our volunteer specialists in recruiting volunteers, onboarding them with a specific emphasis on BIPOC volunteers, because we know that our Hispanic and Black African American communities deserve volunteers who represent them. And so that's what this grant would fund. There she is.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
Little over.
I was wondering what that was a picture of. I couldn't make it out. Any questions?
I'm good.
Good?
Thank you. That was a great presentation.
All right.
Oh,
That was
thank you.
great.
Thank you.
You must have Adam's Ribs a lot
Thank
for
you.
lunch. Okay, next.
Next, we have Angela Ewell Madison from Wiley Bates Legacy Center.
Hello. Thanks for being here.
Yes. Thank you. Angela Ewell Madison, Wiley Bates Legacy Center. The address is 1101 Smithville Street, Annapolis, Maryland. That's okay. I usually get E-well or any other. It's perfectly fine. Thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the Bates Legacy Center. We do appreciate the support that you have given us over the years, and your partnership has really been invaluable. We exist to preserve and tell the story of Wiley H. Bates High School and its alumni, to provide a community gathering space, and to carry out programs in line with the legacy of Mr. Bates. We specifically provide programming that addresses education inequality and care for senior citizens. In our case, we use grant funding to cover the cost of staff to allow these programs to continue. In our desire to address education inequalities in our community, we have formed a partnership with the ACE program, which stands for Alternative Center for Education, in partnership through the Anne Arundel County Public School System, which is housed in the Boys and Girls Club here in Annapolis. We provide volunteer hours and run an incentives program to help increase academic performance, attendance, and behavior among this vulnerable population. These are students who don't necessarily thrive in traditional classroom settings, and so this is an alternative for them that we provide. We also provide training and networking opportunities to mentoring organizations working in the city through our partnership with Mentor Maryland, DC. In this, we help facilitate gathering opportunities for those organizations for collaborative learning, and we seek to further train them for the valuable work that they do in the community. We have additionally served as a gathering space for important conversations about education throughout our county. Because grant funding we receive from the City of Annapolis helps keep our overhead low, we are able to offer free use of our space to hold a variety of community meetings and programs for students. And these have included working with the Anne Arundel County Public School System and Bates Middle School, just to name a few. We also do programming to support senior citizens. Our weekly bread giveaway has been incredibly successful, addressing hunger and food insecurity among senior citizens in Anne Arundel County, and specifically with the Bates residents. This program provides over $7,500 worth of free bread and baked goods, which would be becoming food waste, and instead it becomes a community resource. Because we don't only want people to survive, but we think that even those most vulnerable among us need opportunities to celebrate, we have started a program sharing resources with vulnerable seniors that we are hoping to hold parties to celebrate big events in their lives. So almost weekly, we are providing tables, chairs, and other resources to seniors who are below the poverty line. And related to this, we also offer 2 free movie nights a month, which is open to the public, but it's mostly attended by senior citizens. None of these programs would be able to happen without some of our staffing costs being offset by the generous funding by the City of Annapolis. So because of this, we hope to once again be able to receive this funding. And again, we appreciate your time and your consideration of this request. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions?
Just a couple questions. How many staff members at Vegas Uli?
We have 2 full-time staff right now.
All right.
An executive director and his assistant.
Okay. And the ACE program, approximately how many students are in that?
Well, we partner with several, I'm not sure the exact number, and I'm happy to get that information for you, but we've had sessions with the parents of the students as well as the students. Our focus being to help the parents to help their children is really the focus. But I know that we've partnered with several schools within the county, and it has been a huge success. And again, it addresses the needs of those students who, for some reason, are not able to perform well in a traditional classroom setting, so we offer them some alternatives. But I'm happy to come back to you with that number. I was asked to fill in at the 11th hour.
I get it. I thank you very much for your answer.
We really appreciate your time, but I'm happy to get that information to you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not attend Wiley H. Bates High School, but my parents did. My mother lived in Severn, my dad lived in Annapolis, and that was the first year they had transportation, so my mother was able to come to Bates. But if it hadn't been for the Wiley H. Bates, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I would not exist. at least in this form. So I can't say no because I would go against my own self. But thank you so much for everything you all continue to do.
Thank you. And we really try to serve the citizens of Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis, and we're looking to expand our programs as much as we can to keep that legacy alive and tell the story of Mr. Bates and his legacy. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience in waiting as well.
Oh, absolutely. I understand.
Okay. Can I just have a raise of hands who hasn't presented yet? Okay. Well, good. Okay. Okay. Let's keep going. We're going to be okay.
All right, up next we have Julie Volleson from Farm Unity.
Hello, I'm Julie Volleson from Farm Unity. I'm the Farm Unity Board Secretary. I'm here for Jitendra Rathod. He's our president and founder. So our address is at his residence. It's 1608 Troyes Court in Crofton, Maryland, 21114. So Farm Unity was founded in April 2023. And we grow vegetables and fruits at a 4,000 square foot plot at the Crofton Community Library. And we have had a great first year. We gave away 600 pounds of produce to Catholic Charities of Baltimore, their Medicaid clinic. And we also left some produce at the library lobby for anyone to take. We believe everyone can benefit from growing food and being in nature, working in soil, and working alongside fellow community members. We started with 10 volunteers, and we have now grown to a diverse group of 200 volunteers. We also have a number of partners. For instance, 2 Anne Arundel County Public Schools, North County School and Phoenix Academy of Annapolis, are growing our seedlings for us. We are physically growing as well. We now have a second garden at Indian Creek School in Crownsville, and another one planned in Millersville. For the Indian Creek garden, volunteers from an energy organization came and helped us out, setting up a fence and putting down the soil. And we have also expanded our Crofton Library garden to allow for a pollinator garden, and a church group came to help us with that. We're garnering quite a bit of attention. We had a visit from the Anne Arundel County Executive, Stuart Pittman, recently at our library garden. And so with our increased garden space, we hope to donate, in addition to the Medicaid clinic, to Backpack Buddies for summer distribution to students, as well as to Sarah's House Shelter at Fort Meade. So we can't do all of this without our volunteers. And so what would we do for an Annapolis City grant? We would improve and revamp our website to include a space specifically for our volunteers. We would like them to be able to see online what our volunteer opportunities and our needs are at each of our gardens. And they can sign up to help at each of our locations. We would also like to have the form that we ask them to fill out online. And we would also like to better develop our social media presence so that we can attract future volunteers and also continue to engage our present volunteers. So we are a young organization, but we've gotten a lot done in a year, and we feel like a grant could help us even more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Alderwoman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ma'am, could you expand a little bit on what you do in regard to the Phoenix Center? The Phoenix School, Phoenix Academy.
The Phoenix Academy is growing some of our summer vegetable seedlings.
Do you have volunteers over there, or how does that work? Or?
No, at least not yet. They have talked about putting in a garden, so we're thinking about that as a future endeavor, but the children are learning how to grow plants, and so they offered to grow us some seedlings, and we need them with all our increased garden space.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Thank you so much for what
Thank
you
you
do
for the
and for coming in.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Okay, next.
All right, up next we have Dallas Lister with Friends of Eastport Volunteer Fire Company.
Good afternoon. Dallas Lister, representing Eastport Volunteer Fire Company, 914 Bay Ridge Avenue. So we've been working on a project, and I think I've talked to each of you individually for approximately 2.5 years now to build a pocket park at the firehouse in Eastport. Part of this concept was to build a legacy for the people that have given their lives through the fire department, recognizing the line of duty deaths and those that have come before us and heroes that we look up to. The combination of things that occur for the community is through this process, we've built multiple partnerships, some with Annapolis Striders, some with the Travis Manion Foundation, and other organizations. It has been recognized that this part of Eastport is kind of like a wasteland kind of area with the concept of there's no drinking fountains, there's no play areas, there's no calm spots unless you go onto the church parking lot or things like that. So we've begun to work with these partners, and we're putting in drinking fountains for runners, dog walking bag or dog waste bags for dog walkers, increased seating area, increased shade, increased lighting, in this area that will actually revitalize and rejuvenate this community in this part of the Eastport neighborhood. There are hundreds of kids that walk through this front parking lot every single day going to school. And the people in the community look at the firehouse in general as a safe space. And so this is an expansion of that safe space for our community in an effort to give people another reason to kind of get away from the hubbub and the stuff that goes on, and a place to just kind of de-escalate. And we've done this through the design. So where this grant comes into play is, as I said, we've been working on this for 2.5 years for funding, and our goal of funding has increased by 30% over the time due to inflationary costs. And so we've put in for this grant in order to complete the project as a whole. And if we are not able to get the grant, we've broken it down into several phases. And so we've gotten funding to start a phase, and as I think you've been notified through email, we will begin that first phase hopefully in June. We would love to be able to accomplish the complete area. If you were looking at the map that was provided in the presentation, the stuff on the right-hand side, the walkways and stuff would not be included. That would all be put aside, and the lighting would also be put aside, because those are two expensive areas that we were not able to include due to inflationary costs. So that's basically what I have. If you guys have questions, we can jump straight to it.
Okay. All right, questions?
Just for clarification, because I know we've talked about, so
Sure.
this, if you weren't receiving this grant, we wouldn't be able to do that sidewalk and the lighting.
Yes, if you're looking at, there should be an overview page that I gave of what the concept of the entire property is. We will be cutting out the sidewalk to the right-hand side of the firehouse and the lighting.
Okay.
All the walkway, pathway lighting would all be cut out. Okay. And that would be planned at a future time when we were able to get funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When would your anticipated, groundbreaking be? What is your goal?
We're working with contractors now. So we've done a bulk of the fundraising through brick sales. And so that we have a point where we are at now where we're going to place the order May 15th for the bricks. That has a 6 to 8 week lead time. The contractor will be ready to move forward at the end of June, early July for if you want to call it a groundbreaking. It'll go very, very quickly. The groundbreaking to their part done, it will be like 4 days. So it's not going to be that big of a time expanse. So we're hoping to do like a official ribbon cutting September 11th or something in that neighborhood to kind of coordinate with the Manion Run that we do in the city, because they use this as one of their endpoints.
Beautiful. Alderwoman Kendall Charles, you're good. Well, thank you for coming in and all that you do. We know that you're a volunteer on many, many aspects. So thank you again.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Mary Hauser with Live Water Foundation.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you all for your continued support of us over the years and for having us today. My name is Mary Hauser. I'm the president of Live Water Foundation. Our address is P.O. Box 404, Annapolis, Maryland, 21404. Live Water Foundation was established in 2017. We were part of the, it started out of Capital Sup, a local paddleboard shop, and was built out of their community give back program. It started with our Waiakoa Veterans Program, which a lot of those programs were based out of Wounded Warrior, Team RWB, and Walter Reed. The purpose of the grant that we're applying for is more geared towards the Junior Waiakoa program. You can hit the next slide, thank you. And so with the Junior Waiakoa program, we work with underserved youth in the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County area. We work with HACA, TCP, the Stanton Center, Chesapeake Bay Living, and new this year we'll be working with the Maritime Museum Box of Rain. For this upcoming season, we've historically been running as 100% volunteer board, and all of our programs have been run by volunteers. New this year, we'll be adding a program coordinator who will help us focus specifically on this program to both add more educational pieces to it, environmentally, and being able to implement these programs more efficiently. Also for this year, we are hoping to increase our youth participation to 93 youth for the summer. Our programs run from June to September. We historically have served more than 200 youth in total over the years. We are, sorry, one second. We'd like to have 93 youth that we'll be serving this year, teaching them how to swim, paddleboard, and clean up the local waterways. So 2 years ago, our swim program was initiated. We typically were just working on paddleboarding with the youth, but this year we'd like to, up that to 93. And really, the swim program has been our most beneficial program that we're doing. Like, how many people here know how to swim? And how many people have that opportunity? Oh, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Questions? No?
Yes, I hope.
Yes.
Any questions?
Thanks for coming in, Mary. I have a quick question for you.
Oh.
You said 93 this year.
Yes.
Is that average?
Oh, no, we'd like to up it to 93. We were around 70 last year.
To increase the number of
Increasing,
participants?
yeah. And we'll be working with Box of Rain this year, which is new. So we're hoping to also throughout the years increase those partnerships with local organizations.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Just quickly, I got caught up with the paddleboarding and everything. Do you actually give swimming lessons? And I'm sorry if you had said that.
Yes, so that's been new. So
swimming lessons
we've worked with Annapolis Police Department, Patty Norris, and a couple other local organizations, and we've been teaching swim lessons. So we've worked out of the Truxton Pool, the HACA Pool, and we'll be working out of the Seafarers Yacht Club for the Box of Rain program.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Kendall Charles.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One quick question. Is Miss Tiffany Butler still with your organization?
She is not.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
but I went to high school with her.
Okay,
She's wonderful.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your patience in coming in. Thank you for all you do. Oh gosh, last but not least, you guys have waited, and I apologize for that.
It's Louise Engel with Annapolis Maritime Museum and Park.
Hi. Okay. Sure.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to us today. We appreciate your consideration. My name is Louisa Engel. I am the VP of Programs and Community Engagement at the Annapolis Maritime Museum. Our address is 723 2nd Street in Annapolis. That's in Eastport. Last year, our education program saw over 14,000 participants in a pretty small space, so we're really excited by that, and we are looking very much forward to increasing that year over year moving forward. We have a suite of hands-on environmental education programs that really strive to connect youth and adults in this area to their maritime heritage and to the into the ecology of the Chesapeake Bay, and also get people out on the water, sometimes often for the first time. I would like to introduce Tom Gay. He is program officer at the Severn River Association, and he created this Operation Osprey, so he's going to take it from here.
So Operation Osprey is a science-based program in which we enlist middle schoolers and some high schoolers as well to be out on the water, literally taking an inventory of the osprey that live in the Severn River watershed. And the point is, the students can be part of a real science project here. The data they're collecting is actually going to be shared with the academic and regulatory communities. What we're doing is we're creating an annual inventory of how many osprey actually live here. And so we're charting every osprey nest in the Severn River. It's 14 miles, and it gives us a beautiful opportunity to have a geographically well-defined area in which we just count osprey. And so in the process, the students learn not only about how to identify all the osprey, they learn about the osprey lifestyle, and then they also learn the scientific method of the importance of carefully tracking data, and you learn how to track it into a data sheet, and we take the data sheet and we generate year by year. And yes, that's Corinne. She came out with us last year. Last year was our pilot project, and we proved the concept here. And the daughter, the little girl there, Ayana, I believe her name is, we could not find the osprey nest in this very obvious spot. She found it. So we named the osprey nest Ayana's Nest in honor of Ayana. I think she was just going into 4th grade. All you have to do with the kids when you get them out there is give them binoculars and some basic education, and we go to nest by nest by nest, and we can start to observe the osprey. In the early summer, just about this time of year, if we got out now, you're just watching the osprey return from their migrations. They're setting up house, they're remating, they're starting their families all over again. By mid to late July, the chicks are hatching, they're turning into young adults, and the students are able then to learn how to identify male from female and also from adult from juvenile. They learn the whole osprey lifestyle. For example, it's the mother who stays in the nest all day. Does that sound familiar? And then at the end of July, when the birds finally can fly, which is called fledging, Mom goes, okay, my job's done, and she migrates on her own. And then Dad hangs around for another 3 weeks or so and teaches the young how to hunt, and when he realizes they can hunt, he flies away. Mom and Dad take separate vacations on the winter. So the kids get to learn all this, and they get to observe all this, and then while the parents are together, then they're observing this togetherness, how the birds work together. Dad pretty much brings the fish into the nest every day. He also brings sticks in. The mom is the one who arranges the sticks, and then she's stuck in the nest all day. Dad does come and he relieves her once a day for an afternoon, and then she's able to go and stretch her wings. But she's kind of stuck in the nest, and that's just the way nature is. And so the kids get to learn this. And you can see, it's easy to see nests in trees in the springtime. It's very difficult to see those guys. In another week or two, you won't see them at all. So what we're out there now, what I did last spring is track them all as I could, and now we go back in the summer and we try to see if we can identify them. Most of the nests, as you can see, are in the easy to track day marks and platforms. And the reason we're looking at osprey is they're so easy to track. You can't do this with eagles. Eagles are hidden away, you can't see them. Eagles eat anything, they're scavengers.
Okay. You have to
Osprey only eat fish they catch from the Severn River. So if the osprey population is healthy, it means the Severn River is doing well. But if the osprey population were to fall off, then we know something's amiss because they're not getting enough food to then feed the young. Then we can ask more questions about, all right, what's the problem? And we see the kids in the process learn about the threats to Osprey, which are climate change, stormwater pollution, the standard stuff, but also overdevelopment. If we mow down all the trees and the habitat, then they have a harder place to find where to live. Also, overfishing is a problem. So when we're out there observing, and sometimes you're observing, you got to sit and wait. And so that gives us an opportunity to launch discussions about, well, what's the ecological impact of this, that, or the other thing? Okay. We talk about why climate change is a problem with fossil fuels and all that.
All right. Yeah, we have a hard stop, so I didn't want to cut you off right in the middle. So, no, thank you. I just have one quick question. Are you cataloging it? Are you taking pictures of them? Or it sounds like it would make a beautiful montage of pictures.
Of taking pictures of the Osprey?
Yeah. Yes.
At the moment, I'm using cell phones. We're not using big cameras.
Yeah, no.
This time of year, you can get actually pretty close, but we haven't graduated to fancy photography equipment yet. Mostly I'm taking pictures of the kids.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing here. And you can see that's the database we created in our initial year. We want to bring this into the Annapolis Maritime Museum this year because we want to expand this to many, many more students.
Well, thank you so much for your time and waiting and making us smile at the end of a tough day, tough morning.
Thanks for the opportunity to yak.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you. All right.
See y'all.
So is there anything else we need to discuss? I do want to say, on the grants, Yeah, go ahead. Alderwoman O'Neill.
All right, thank you. I just have one quick question. I know that there's a couple of things that people have said that they were going to bring back to us, both from Tuesday and today. And if you guys are getting those, can you put them into the Google Sheet? And I would say specifically if we are receiving those other applications too, if we could just be made aware of when those are up there. I appreciate everything that you guys have done, and I know that it's sometimes from us standing here and the questions being fired at you are probably coming faster than the speed of light. But I do appreciate all that you've done, and please know that your work on this is important to us because you're the first line for us. You're reading through every application and, making the judgment on, what should be funded and things like that. So I do appreciate that, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, I just have one.
Thank you all.
I just have one quick question on We Care. I was just curious on why they didn't present. Was there a reason for that?
I didn't see them sign up, or if they did sign up for Tuesday, they may not have signed up for today.
Okay. And again, I'll echo what my colleague said. This was unbelievable, really, that you orchestrated these presentations. That was excellent. So we really appreciate that. And I concur. I like this process. I do like this process. It's that they're being looked at, the applications. But I think we do still need to do some work on the code, and so we don't have this situation again. Anything to add other than thank you so much?
I agree with everything you said.
Welcome to the city.
Right. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Glad I'm off tomorrow.
Oh, God. Hilarious. Thank you. All right. Well, without anything else, I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.